This presentation, we will explore the complex landscape of freedom of speech in Malaysia. We will begin by reviewing constitutional provisions related to freedom of speech, including Article 10 and its limitations. Next, we'll discuss relevant legislation such as the Sedition Act, Printing Presses and Publications Act, and Communications and Multimedia Act. Then examine significant case law and academic discussions. Lastly, we'll conclude with a summary and future implications. Constitutional provisions. There are specific provisions outlined in the federal constitution that guide about the right to freedom of speech in Malaysia. It includes Article 10, which guarantees citizens freedom of speech, assembly, and association. However, it is subject to certain limitations. Acts regulating freedom of speech. The Sedition Act criminalizes speech that presents a rebellious tendency. The Printing Presses and Publications Act provides directions that publications should obtain a license issued by government, and the Communications and Multimedia Act governs online communication on digital media. The Sedition Act 1948 was established to regulate speech that could raise discontent, resistance, or riot against the government. The Act defines seditious inclination in depth, overall speech that induces hatred or disrespect towards any ruler or government, as well as speech that promotes grudge and hostility between different races or classes. There have been several distinguished cases involving penalties under the Sedition Act. The Act remains an important tool despite calls for invalidation for the government to maintain public order and national security. A notable case, Azmi Sherom, a law lecturer, was charged under the Sedition Act 1948 for critical comments made online in an article about the Perak constitutional crisis. He was released from the case on the basis that his comments did not accumulate to sedition, alongside affirming the constituency of the Act with the Constitution. This ruling reflects that there is a tension in maintaining the public order and protecting the freedom of speech in Malaysia side by side, and there is a need for the reforms in the Act. Oi Kisai made statements in a political rally that provoked racial tensions by challenging the special privileges of Malays outlined in the constitution. The federal court in this case upheld his conviction by preferring public order over free speech, and was shown by the ruling that increased the debates on the need for more clear legal boundaries that protect political expression in Malaysia. Other notable cases involve sedition charges such as Public Prosecutor versus Lim Kit Siang, in which an opposition leader was charged for challenging the judicial integrity, and Public Prosecutor versus Tian Chua, in which a politician was charged under the Sedition Act for comments made in a political rally. These cases also highlight the wide use of the sedition and its implications for the freedom of speech. Other regulations involved Printing and Presses and Publications Act 1984 that required print media to obtain an annual publishing approval from the Home Ministry. The Minister of Home Affairs has unrestricted access and power to grant, annul, or suspend permits, often controlling critical releases and articles. Communications and Multimedia Act 1998 regulates online communications in Malaysia, disallowing content that's offensive, indecent, false, hostile, or vulgar. Internet service providers must block provoking websites. According to critics, the Act's legislative sections are subjective and control digital freedom of expression. Academic discussions. There have been debates by Malaysian scholars over the issue of freedom of speech. Dr. Farida Abdul Rashid criticizes the Sedition Act's broader definitions and also argue on the fact that selective and subjective application will suppress the resistance. Other scholars also highlighted the Communications and Multimedia Act's provision for offensive content that are subject to interpretation and can be used to target individuals. We have explored the constitutional provisions, relevant legislation, and significant case law regarding freedom of speech in Malaysia. These elements collectively inform the current state of free expression in the country.